Hi everyone, my name is Laura Shire and I'm one of the student career advisors at the Cohen Career Center, and today I'm going to be going through a slide deck on interviewing. So to start off, the interviewer has three objectives. Can you do the job? Will you love the job? And will you fit in with the organization? So you need to put yourself in the interviewer's shoes and kind of think about what exactly that they're looking for. So organization fit is really important and it connects to that. So the question they're asking here is, will you fit in with the team? Can they get along with you? Are you easy to work with? And how will you represent the department and the organization as a whole? So the kind of question that we tell students to think about is, if the interviewer and you were stuck together in an airport for 5 hours, would both of you love it? Would you go insane? You'd hopefully be the first. You'd hopefully both love it and be able to get along well. So you are interviewing the organization just as much as they are interviewing you. So make sure that you feel comfortable in the particular work environment, and you kind of use the interview time to ask about the culture, the reporting structure, the size, community involvement, etc. So you also want to get to know more about them during this interview. However, this may be more difficult if the entire interview process is virtual, which a lot of companies may be, going with the next few months. So before the interview, it's absolutely imperative that you be prepared and feel confident. And so one way to do that is to be knowledgeable about the field, organization, and the position. These things will help you stand out from other candidates. And lastly, in order to sell yourself effectively during the interview, you need to know yourself as well. So the best way to prepare would be this list. So informational interviews are going to be really great to do. And so the way to do this is to identify professionals in the field for informational interviews. So one way to do that is finding alumni through LinkedIn or other connections that are in a similar field or even working at the same organization, and just asking them about tips, or if they like that position, if they like the company, or what their background is. And all of these things can help you do better in an interview if you just know more about what you're getting yourself into. So next would be the organization website. So look at that website for information on history, mission, values, initiatives, projects, community involvement. And just one tip that I do tell students is that they will generally ask you basic questions in an interview. So just make sure you know the basics, like who's the CEO, what is the most recent stock price. That was really important if you are interviewing for a publicly traded company. And then if the company name is better known as an acronym, so like IBM, just make sure that you know what that acronym stands for. Next is LinkedIn and Twitter. So check out those social media pages and feeds to see what they've been up to recently. Vault provides organization profiles, and then Glassdoor has a repository of interview questions provided by previous candidates. So both of these are excellent in researching just more about the organization or what actual people have had to answer in interviews at that organization previously. And then lastly, professional associations can also give a lot of insight on industry trends. Next, you really want to understand and know yourself. So take inventory of who you are as a person. And remember, it's about fit between the candidate and the organization. It's not just one-sided of them figuring out if they like you. You also have to like them. So then what skills and attributes of yours will contribute to the organization, and how will they help you stand out? And then what motivates you in general? What motivates you about this field and the specific organization? So knowing everything you can about yourself and your background is a great way to come across well in an interview, and just make sure that you can connect yourself to what they're looking for. So it's also important to think about transferable skills. So these skills can be developed through a variety of experiences. It's not just professional experience like an actual internship or anything. You can also get transferable skills through campus organizations, jobs, volunteering, and research. And so you want to think about the skills that you gain from all those experiences and how they align with the employer's needs. So one way to do that is to check out the actual job posting on whatever website you found that job on, and seeing what their ideal candidate looks like. And normally a lot of employers will list skills they want you to have when you apply to a job. So it's really good to go on there and see what skills you have from your past will fit with what they're looking for. And so this list I have is just kind of a sample list of things you could potentially use to make sure that you fit. So analyzing, collaborating, and publicizing are a few. So moving on to types of questions. There are different types of questions for interviews, and they each involve different approaches and styles. So kind of knowing and understanding the types of questions and how to prepare will build your confidence going into the interview. So the first kind is icebreakers. And so these are used by interviewers a lot just to kind of get started. It's just an easy way to start the conversation with a casual kind of small talk line like, did your area get a lot of rain yesterday? And these are kind of designed to put you more at ease, since interviewers, contrary to popular belief, do like to see you at your best. However, a warning, don't get too relaxed with these questions as the interviewer transitions into the structured questions. So they'll generally start with maybe one or two of these icebreakers. So next are going to be traditional. So these are the basic interview questions. A lot of people just kind of assume they're going to be asked. So tell me about yourself is probably the most common one. So your answer, you really want to keep it succinct. You want to stay on point and just kind of briefly go through your education, campus experience, the skills and attributes that you bring, as well as the excitement about interviewing for this opportunity. So keep these short. Next, another common one is what attracts you to this position. So you really need to know the position well and how your background, again, matches to it. So you want to map the skills that you have to that position. Next, it would be, how did you select your college major? So you want to talk about what factors went into that decision and what maybe some other opportunities or options you had were and how you ended up making your decision. Next question is, how would your professors and previous supervisors describe you? And this might be a hard one, but the interview is really just looking for your self-awareness at this point. And lastly, what kind of work environment do you thrive in? So again, the interviewer is trying to assess your fit and how you'd operate within the office's environment. So making sure you know as much as you can about the actual work environment, the corporate structure of that company is really important for this question. Next is behavioral, which is another really common set of questions. So these require you to know your experiences really well and be able to explain a specific situation. And so when you answer these questions, you're going to want to talk about the skills and the attributes that you used, as well as the outcomes achieved, and then connect all of this back to the position, just to kind of show that you have experience to kind of tackle the same challenges that the position will require. So there's a list of common ones here. You got two. So one will be, describe a time when you were out of your comfort zone and how did you handle it? And so on the next slide, I have a method to consider when answering behavioral questions, because you do want to be, I guess, anecdotal and tell stories in your interview. And this is the best way to do this. So the STAR method is something we tell every student who comes in. So you want to talk about the situation. So that's when you select the example, then the task, so the goal you needed to accomplish, then the action, so specific steps taken to achieve the goal, and be specific here, and then the result, the outcome. So the result is going to be really important too, because this is your conclusion. So obviously you want to say explicitly what the outcome was, but you want to say what skills you learned through this experience and how that will carry over to your work at this company, should they hire you. And these are just a list of other common behavioral examples. So give me a specific example of a time when you used good judgment and logic in solving a problem. Next one is talking about presentation skills. So these questions are generally designed to just kind of ask about your soft skills. So presentation, communication, all of those things, and just kind of hear your stories in your past. Last kind of question is case questions. So these are really designed to assess how you think through a problem or a situation. And some employers will utilize this format, and it does require a different approach and strategy. So these are two examples of questions to give you a better idea, and as you can imagine, they are not quick answers. But with case interviews, they're really just designed to kind of understand how you think. So it's important that you verbalize your thought process and organize your answer to manage your time. Because again, they don't want you to, spend 30 minutes answering. They want you to be succinct and not get caught up too much in the little details. So again, keep in mind that you want to bring closure and summarize your answer once you're done. And we cannot reiterate this enough. They're not necessarily looking for a specific right answer, because, if they don't let you use a calculator, there's no way for you to really do that complicated math if they were to ask you to calculate something or count something. So your questions are also going to be really important. So at the end of the interview, we cannot reiterate this enough. You really, 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 really should have questions to ask them. And these questions are going to illustrate your interest, your motivation, and the research and knowledge that you did or that you have for the position in the organization. So we tell students to maybe have a list of like 5 to 7 questions to ask. And these can be as simple as, What are you looking for in the ideal candidate? Or what does a day in the life look like for an intern or an analyst? You can ask about the interviewer too. So what do you like about working here? What is your background and how did you end up here? So this is just designed to, again, really show your interest, because the more detailed questions that you have, or the more invested you seem in the process, the more you'll stand out and the better you'll look. So on top of the different kinds of questions, there are also different kinds of interview settings. So you got the phone interviews, in-person, group, formal interviews, and then computer interviews. So phone interviews do have advantages and disadvantages. And the advantages being you can have notes and the website in front of you. So you have all the information that you need. But the hardest part about these is that you really only have your voice to convey confidence and enthusiasm. So you really want to make sure that even though they can't see you, they can feel how much you want the job and they can feel how confident you are. So a way to do that is to smile when talking. And that also just kind of helps you sound more confident. And then another thing to keep in mind is that you need to find a quiet spot with good cell service so that you don't cut in and out. So it's just a smooth interview so they can completely and holistically analyze you, via that interview. Next are video interviews, which are probably going to be more common in the coming months. So these can be like a one-on-one interview, but using Skype or Zoom, or they can be a pre-recorded question. And so these are really common in large companies who have thousands of applicants. But they give you a finite time to record your answer to a question that they provide right when you start that process. So you don't necessarily know that question beforehand. And so once you see that question, the company can decide to give you a couple of minutes to prepare to answer, or they can just completely send you in and start recording your answer immediately. So it's important to just do the same amount of research you would for the pre-recorded questions as you would for an in-person interview, despite those pre-recorded interviews not being with an actual person. So tips for this: you want to create a quiet zone and ensure that the background that you're using is free of distractions and clean. You also want to make sure you're in good lighting so they can see you, what you look like, and how you are presenting yourself. Practice with someone to ensure the setup is good, so have someone else on the other side just to make sure that all of those things I mentioned before are good and clear. And lastly, this is really important, since you're on a video, you can't necessarily make easy eye contact. So the best way to do that is to talk to the camera and not the screen. So make sure you're looking directly at your computer camera and not at yourself on the screen or at someone else, because they can't tell what you're looking at. So just to be safe and make the best eye contact you can virtually, look at the camera. So there are nonverbal elements to keep in mind, since you will be evaluated on these elements in addition to the content of your answers. So you're going to want to keep in mind voice volume, speed, and pitch, as well as your behavior. So do you smile a lot, or do you look kind of sulky or sad all the time? Just make sure you're aware of all of these things. You're also going to want to keep in mind eye contact. So depending on video or in person, look at the camera or at the interviewer's eyes. Body posture as well, and then handshake is super, super important. So you don't want to be too aggressive with it, but you don't want to be too soft. And the best way to get good at it is to practice. So practice on, one of your friends, your roommate, your professor, or someone, just to make sure that you do have a good handshake, because that does say a lot about a person to a lot of interviewers. Attire and appearance is also incredibly important. So for most full-time position interviews, professional attire is recommended. However, some will allow business casual. However, it is better to overdress than underdress, because you don't want to bring unnecessary attention to yourself for the wrong reasons. The goal is to have the interviewer focus on the content and delivery of your answers and not be distracted by your attire or other factors. So here is a list of different things to keep in mind. So look professional, wear neutral colors, make sure your shoes are, clean, no scuffs, not too outrageous or, too eye-catching, I guess. And then just ensure that you're neatly groomed with professional makeup or, neatly groomed facial hair if you have that, with minimal perfume and cologne. So after the interview is just as important as before and during. So you really want to thank the interviewer and reiterate your interests as best you can. So sending a thank you note is absolutely necessary. Not as many people as you think do this, and you want to stand out by sending a thank you note. So a thank you note it can be pretty simple. So just thank the interviewer for their time and for the opportunity, express your interest again, and kind of just maybe use one or two sentences to sum up why you fit that position the best. And then maybe include a personal detail from your time in that interview. So if you and the interviewer during the intro where the icebreakers talked about something that you had in common, be sure to mention that, and that'll make you more memorable. And lastly, it's also good to kind of take a step back and analyze yourself and your performance in the interview. So what went well and what needs improvement? And these are good things to keep in mind for the future if you have to interview for a position again. So to sum it all up, we have a lot of interview resources at these places, and I'll kind of go through these a little bit more in the next few slides, but practice makes perfect. So the more you can practice and take advantage of these resources, the better. So here's the Cohen website. So we got tons of links and a lot of information about what I talked about, as well as, more detailed stuff. So be sure to check that out. And then we got Big Interview. So not a lot of students know about this, but we do subscribe to this software online that allows you to practice video questions and also just get an idea of the different questions that could be asked, as well as the questions and how they differ by industry and competency. So this software has thousands of different questions for case interviews, behavioral, technical interviews for different fields as well. So it's a really great resource that you can check out just to get an idea of what they could ask you. So here's an example of when you actually practice it. So the lady on the left is the video of asking the question. So it's supposed to feel like an actual interview. So she is your interviewer, and then you can record your answer for the question on the right, and you can save it and potentially send it to other people as well if you want third-party feedback. So as with any interviews, the more you practice, the more ready and confident you will be. So please come on into Cohen and take advantage of our multitude of resources by scheduling an appointment, coming to Quick Advising, or just following us on social media. We love to see you guys come in, and we love to help you all with your career goals. So thank you so much and have a wonderful day.